So my name is Cheyenne Jock. I'm an employment consultant with the North Texas team. I'm going to pause just because we have someone else joining. Okay, well, I'll keep going. So my name is Cheyenne Jock. I'm an employment consultant with the North Texas team. I have been with Best Buddies just under 2 years, and I have been working with people with disabilities for over 12 now, over 12 years. So I've worked in education settings, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in community living, and now in employment. So I've kind of seen people with disabilities in all areas. So I'm excited to get to talk to you guys about the world of employment tonight. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the Best Buddies Jobs Program, people are typically really familiar with our friendship program. Some people are not quite as familiar with our jobs program, but we know that once people graduate high school, we don't want them to just graduate to the couch. So our jobs program was created in 1994. And this is where we find competitive and integrated employment for people with disabilities so that they can earn an income, pay taxes, and build those skills needed to support themselves and be more independent. Now, why do job coaches, employment providers exist at all? This is why, because 82% of people with IDD don't have a job in the community, a paid job, compared to 10% of people without IDD. Now, I will say of the 18% that do have a job, only about a third of them, so we're talking about 6% of people with IDD have a job that is considered competitive, which means they're working at least 14 to 16 hours a week and they're making at least what everyone else is making in that position. So it's a pretty low threshold when you think about it, pretty low standard for what's considered competitive, but still only 6% of people with IDD fit that criteria, which is why our job exists. So why do 82% of people with IDD not have a job? It's not because they don't want it. These are not people who can't work. These are people who can and want to work, but typically they don't for two reasons. Number one, because of stigma, because it's really hard for them to find a job because they're facing hundreds of years worth of stigma attached to having a disability. And then also because they do not have the support and the resources to secure and maintain employment. So that's why my job exists. So when you are going into the world of employment, you're going to hear a lot of new terms, a lot of new phrases. So I wanted to give you guys an idea of what some of those things mean. So when you start to see them, when you're out exploring employment, you know what they are. You kind of have a heads up. You don't have to do all that extra research. So the first word that you'll hear us say a lot, we say participant. In the friendship program, you'll probably hear buddies, but in the jobs program, we say participant. The Texas Workforce Commission calls them customers. Some people call them clients. Those words are kind of interchangeable, but it is a person who's receiving services. This is a person with a disability who is receiving services. Next is a job coach. I'm considered a job coach. This is someone who's employed to help people with disabilities learn their job, establish accommodations, and help them perform their work duties. I'm also considered a job developer. Sometimes this will be two different people. You will have a job coach and a job developer. And sometimes, like in my case, it's the same person. So the job developer is the one who does all the work in the beginning, who helps them prepare for work, teaches them the skills that they need to be successful, and then assists them in the interview process, the application interview, hiring process. We also work with the employer to help create positions or help them be prepared to support someone with a disability. So that's the difference. Again, sometimes it's the same person and sometimes it can be two different people or a team of people, I should say. A workplace analysis, I think that this definition that someone put in here is a technical definition. So it involves a step-by-step common sense look at the workplace to find existing or potential hazards for workplace violence. Yes, we do look for potential opportunities for workplace violence. However, we also look at a lot of other things. We look at potential safety hazards. We look at what jobs exist, what jobs could exist. I call it the overall vibe, how the team is working together, um, how the place is run. Is it run effectively? So when you do a workplace analysis, you're really looking at a lot of different things. But yes, we do evaluate for workplace violence and a lot of the time safety hazards. What's the environment like? What is the noise level? What's the sensory level? What's the physical activity level? All of those things play a factor in if a person is going to be successful in that placement. Accommodation, this is any modification or adjustment to the job, the work environment, or the way things are usually done. This can be small. For instance, I have participants who have a picture checklist instead of a text checklist, or it could be something a little bit more costly or kind of a bigger undertaking, like putting in a ramp in front of a building. On average, most accommodations cost less than $50. And if they are expensive, they typically benefit more than just one person. For instance, if you put a ramp in front of a building, it's not going to benefit just that one person with a disability that's working there. It's going to benefit a lot of people. So accommodations are ways that people can make a job or be more successful at their job. Disclosure. This is when you hear someone say disclosure, they are referring to disclosing that you have a disability. This is a very personal choice. I always, when I start the interview process with people, we always talk about the pros and cons of disclosure because there are pros and there are cons to disclosing, and it's different for everyone. Some people are very open about their disability. Some people do not want to talk about it at all. And I also have participants who maybe want to disclose a portion of their disability, but maybe not everything. For instance, I have someone who has seizures. It's really important that he tells his employer that he has seizures so that they know to be prepared and how to help him. However, he does not want everyone to know all of his disability. So he just discloses one small part. So disclosure looks different for everyone. It can happen in the interview process. It may never happen. It may happen years after they've been working somewhere. Typically, if you have a job coach on the site with you, people will assume that you have some sort of disability, but you never have to confirm that or discuss that with anybody. The only time someone may be required to disclose is if they're requesting an accommodation. Some employers are great and don't need any documentation. Others do require some documentation of a disability in order to get the accommodation approved. Next is job carving. So this is where we as job developers go into a workplace, see what jobs are being done, and we look at how we can create possibly even a new position. For example, I had a participant, or I had an employer who really wanted to hire someone with disabilities. They are very passionate about inclusion. They were familiar with our program. They were interested in hiring, but they were a small boutique. So they had never hired anyone for a specific position. They were like a family mom and pop shop. So I went in and observed, and I saw people working in the back room processing inventory and then going to the front when customers would come up and working the sales floor. And then they would come back to process inventory and then they would go back to the sales floor. So we carved out a position for someone on my caseload to just work in the back. She loves tagging clothes, folding, steaming, hanging up, sorting, all of that back end stuff she loved, but she didn't really like working with customers. So we carved this position for her. And that's typically a really rare position to see in retail where you don't have to interact with customers. But that's an example of job carving where we created a specific position for her. And then natural supports. We all have natural supports. This is just supports that exist in the workplace or even at home naturally that you can tap into. So an example would be if I need help filling out some paperwork, but I don't understand one of the questions, I know who I can go to within my organization who can help me figure that out. That would be a natural support. Or if my car breaks down and I don't know how I'm going to get to work, I have natural supports at home where my husband could take me and he could give me a ride. So natural supports exist in the workplace and then also in a participant's personal life. And we want to make sure that the people who are in that natural support system are prepared to support the person as well. So we work with the people in the workplace, and we work with families to make sure that everyone's on board. So if something did come up, they would be able to assist. So once you've decided that you want to go to work, you really have to know what the options are, because there are a lot of different types of jobs. And I'm sure you've heard, well, I know so and so, they got a job here, and so has a job here. And I heard this company hires people with disabilities. And that's awesome that people are telling you those things, but it can be hard to determine what setting might be right for you or for your child. So the first example is a sheltered workshop. So this is an example. This is in Arizona, and they're putting together rivets. So sheltered workshops started hundreds of years ago. They became standard in the 50s and 60s, and they do still exist today. Typically, it's piecework, which means they get paid per piece that they assemble or complete. There was one in my town that I live in at least a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if it's still open, but people with disabilities were paid to assemble sunglasses, and they got paid a few cents for each pair of sunglasses they assembled that day. So this is typically a workshop environment, a big room full of people with disabilities. Usually have a couple of staff people there to assist as needed. This works for some people. Some people really enjoy this work because it's really repetitive and they do really well. Some people do, it's kind of controversial. People do consider this exploitation because they're not getting paid very well at all. But it is an option when you start to look for employment. This is not a model that Best Buddies supports or that we place people into because it's not considered competitive. Again, they're not getting paid very well, and it's not considered integrated because they're not working with people who don't have a disability. It's just a room full of people with disabilities. So again, that might work for some people. It's just not a model that we support, but I wanted you guys to know what the options are. Next, you have a work enclave. So this is an example. This is a picture of H&M. Now, enclaves typically exist in bigger companies. I've seen them at Walgreens. I've seen them at Bank of America. A lot of those big companies that have those big hiring initiatives will have a work enclave. So this is a group of people with a disability performing one job under the supervision of a job coach that's there on site. Now, this model does work for a lot of people. A lot of people need that supervision, that close by supervision and assistance from a job coach, but it's not right for everyone. Again, it's not a model that we would support because while they are getting paid more, so it can be considered competitive, it's not considered integrated because again, they're not working side by side people without disabilities. It's just a group of people with disabilities. I will say that I have seen some programs that have enclaves. Once you complete a certain amount of weeks in their program, then you can apply to a quote unquote regular position outside of that enclave and somewhere else in the warehouse or in that business. So again, that's an option for some people, and that really works for some people. I've seen people be really successful there. But what Best Buddies is looking for, we look for three things: meaningful, integrated, and competitive. So what I mean by meaningful is that it matches their goals. We know that we're more successful when we have a job that means something to us. So we want to make sure that they're finding a job that meets their goals, their skills, their interests, and not just a job because it's available, not because they just needed something quick. So I know McDonald's is hiring. I'm just going to put someone at McDonald's, even though they have no interest in food service at all. That's not what we want to do. We really want to make sure that the jobs that where our participants are placed have some sort of meaning to them. Now, by competitive and integrated, again, competitive is 14 to 16 hours a week minimum, making the same as amount of money as anyone else in that position, and is a quote unquote real job. So that's not shredding paper. It's not rolling silverware. Those are parts of a job, but they are not a job in itself. So it needs to be an actual job, even if it's one that we carved and created. And then by integrated, I mean working side by side, people with and without disabilities. So this is a short little clip of Beth. She's the one that we carved this position for. And even though she does work in the back end, it's still considered integrated because she's still working side by side people without disabilities. So hopefully, let's see. I forgot to mention that she also models for them, which is super fun for her. All right, so let's see if it will go to the next slide. There we go. So here are a few of our employer partners that Best Buddies has partnered with throughout the nation. Again, we really focus on some of those non-traditional jobs. We don't just put someone in a job just to fill a quota for us or for the employer. We really want to make sure there's meaning there. We want to make sure that it meets our requirements and that our participants are happy. So you'll hear us talk a lot about choice. Even tonight, I know I'll say it a few times. So I know when you see TWC, if you've had any experience with TWC in the past, you're probably really not looking forward to working with them. I know that the Texas workforce, even mentioning them, I think triggers a lot of feelings for people. It can be frustrating. It is a government process. People are not always as friendly as we want them to be. They're not always moving as quickly as we want them to be. Trust me, I know those frustrations. I deal with them every single day. However, I'm still going to advocate that you reach out to the workforce because they do have a lot of good programs and resources. Now, we're in Texas, so our resources are not as good as those in other states. Pretty consistently for the last, forever, Texas doesn't always have a lot of resources. So I want you guys to have access to the support and resources as much as you can. So I wanted to go through some of the programs that they have available. And these are the ones that we work most closely with. They do have specific programs for specific groups of people. For example, people who are deaf and or blind, they have programs for people with TBIs. They have programs for youth, for people under the age of 18 or for under the age of 21. So they do have some of those specific programs, but these are the ones that we work most closely with. The first one is pre-employment transition services. You'll hear it called pre-ETS or pre-ETS. This is for students with disabilities under the age of 21, typically in a school setting, not always, but typically in a school setting. They get to learn the skills necessary to go and find employment. They have work-based experiences, whether they're in the school or outside of the school. They also have job counseling and post-secondary education counseling. So if you have a child who is under 21, still in school, and you've heard of this program, you may want to look and see if your school has it. Next, we have personal social adjustment training, or PSAT. This is training in things like personal health, hygiene, disability management, social skills, some of those things that's necessary to go to work, but not necessarily directly work related. So this may be a good option as well. You have work adjustment training, or WAT. This is designed for people who are already working, but maybe they need to build some skills or work on a few behaviors or social skills. And it's designed to be done in a structured, competitive work environment. Then we have vocational adjustment training. So this is VAT. I actually teach VAT classes twice a week. I love this program. This is for people who are not ready to go to work yet, but with the right training, they could be. So we teach the skills that they need to be successful in work. So work ethic, job exploration, money management. Right now, this week we're working on communication and conflict resolution. We have done disability disclosure. There's a lot of different programs within VAT, transportation training, things like that. So if you need to learn how to use public transportation, there's a class for that. They don't have to take everything. They can just take, maybe they only need the transportation training and the money management, or maybe they're really good with their money, but they need to work on soft skills. So they can just take the soft skills class. It's not an all or nothing thing, but that will help them build the skills and get ready for work. Then we have work experience. So work experience, this is short-term, part-time, less than 12 weeks. It can be paid, it can be an internship, or it can be a volunteer assignment. And it's designed for people to build some skills, especially if they don't have a lot of work experience. I just had someone complete a work experience placement at a local university. She worked in one of the career centers there, but she had work experience, but she hasn't worked in about 15 years. So she really needed to brush up on some of her professionalism and teamwork and being in just a professional setting again, something to add to her resume, something relevant, build some of those interpersonal skills. So this was a really good opportunity for her to go learn and grow That way she can get ready for job placement. Next, we have Project Search. So this is a series of 3 12-week internships. So this is a long-term program, and you're supported by a trainer or a teacher there. And this is a combination of internship and classroom. So they will go to the classroom for a couple hours a day, and then they will go to their internship for a few hours a day. This is not everywhere in Texas, but if you do live somewhere where Project Search is available, you may want to look into that. If your child is ready to go to work, but maybe needs just a little bit more experience before they really dive headfirst into paid employment, this could be a good opportunity. Sometimes those internships, hopefully, will turn into paid employment at the end, but it does give them some good work experience. Then you have job placement. This is what we do the most of. This is just someone needs a job. We teach them what they need to do to get a job. We help them interview. We build their resume, and then we help them secure that employment. We match them to an employer, walk them through the interview process, the hiring, the onboarding. And then if they need a little extra help after they've gotten the job, then we'll do job skills training. This is on the job support to help them learn the skills necessary to be successful in that job. Then you have supported employment. This is like job placement and job skills training combined. You just get a little more support, but it does include a job exploration component, which I love because people get to do work observations where they go in, try out 3 or 4 jobs for a few hours, and they can really see what it's like to work there to see if that's something that they would enjoy. And it also lets me see, as a supported employment professional, helps me see their skills in action and how I can best support them. So it really lets me get a good idea of what they're good at, what are their challenges, and what they need from me. This is also great because I have a lot of people who, and I did this as well when I was first entering the workforce, so I relate. People really think that they want one job, and then once they're actually in that job, they realize it's very different than what they thought. I had one guy who he is obsessed with Chick-fil-A. He loves Chick-fil-A. He's been eating Chick-fil-A every Thursday since he was a kid. He has Chick-fil-A Thursdays every single week, and now he's in his late 20s. He really wanted a job at Chick-fil-A. We did a work observation, and he realized that eating at Chick-fil-A and working at Chick-fil-A are very different. So I learned that the hard way. I wanted to work in a spa when I was a teenager, and I realized that going to a spa and working in a spa, very different. So this gives them a good opportunity to actually see what it's really like to work there. And he does not work at Chick-fil-A. Then you have ASD support. So this is specific skill training. We set individualized goals for each person, so no goals are the same, but they all fall into one of the following areas, one or more of the following areas: communication and social skills, sensory, level of anxiety, obsessive and restrictive interests, or a comorbidity. Now, I will say, this is just, don't hold me to this, but this is just a little tip for you. It is for people with autism. However, I've had one counselor tell me at the workforce, say, nope, it's only for people with autism. However, I have another counselor who has approved it for other people who don't have autism, but would still benefit from social skills training, level of anxiety, anxiety management, things like that. So if your child does have autism and needs this, you may want to ask specifically about this. If your child doesn't have autism and needs this, you may still want to ask because they could approve it for them. This is something I've had some counselors approve it and suggest it right away. I've had some counselors who I had to request it and be proactive on that end. So again, this is why I want you to know what these programs are, so you know what's available. So if you see something that might be right for your child, you can advocate for that and use that terminology and say, hey, I really want my kid in VAT classes. What do you have available? So I want you to be prepared with that language. Now, if you are super hesitant about working with the workforce, you've had a negative experience, again, I feel you. I work with them every day, so I understand that frustration. And I hear it from parents all the time that they do not want to go that route. However, I'm still going to advocate that you do because, like I said, they do have really good programs. And this person is our contact for the DFW area. However, I don't know where you all are at, but I'm going to give this information to all of you. I've been told that if you've had a negative experience or are hesitant to work with the workforce, to contact this person. So I'm just going to give this information out. And if it's not in your area, she can help connect you to the person that you need to talk to. But she may be able to alleviate some of your fears or your worries, or maybe just reassure you that it is a government process, but you will get through it. So how do you enroll in the Best Buddies process and the Best Buddies Jobs program? Again, you have to make that decision. They have to make that decision that they want to work, and we require that they want to work competitively, which is again 14 to 16 hours per week. And once they make that decision, then contact VR Vocational Rehab, which is the Texas workforce. Start a case with them. It can take a while to get it all done, but be the squeaky wheel. And then what they're going to do, this process is called informed choice. They're going to give you a list of providers in your area, and you can research them. You can call them. You can ask them about their programs. You can interview them. You can do all of your research so that you can find a provider who meets your needs. Best Buddies is not going to be right for everyone. I never get my feelings hurt. I've had people start with me, but end up going with another provider because they could support them better. It's never going to hurt my feelings because I know that we're not designed for everyone. But if you do decide to go with Best Buddies, then you will go into our introductory meeting, which is going over our handbook, human rights orientation. We want our participants to know what their rights are. We want to go over abuse and neglect, sexual harassment, some of those things, so we make sure that they are safe at work. We go over the rules of being in our program, the rules that I have to abide by, the rules that they have to abide by, all of that information during that introductory meeting. And then we start job development. So what does job development look like? This is where we start to determine interests and strengths. We set goals, so that involve those interests and strengths. We create a resume and practice interview skills, and then we find jobs that match that individual skills and abilities. We support them during the interview process, the onboarding and training. And then once we make sure that they know what they're responsible for, then we make sure that they know what they're doing and who to go to if they don't know what they're doing. Then we start to fade support. We really want them to be independent. So again, we're not for everyone, because if someone needs long-term one-on-one support, we're not designed. Again, I'm just one person in Waxahachie, so I can't be there one-on-one with all of my participants. We want them to be independent. So that's just the way our program is designed. What makes our jobs program work? Personal choice and empowerment. Those are the two things that we focus on most. Again, doing job exploration, goal setting, and finding a job for each individual through job matching. We really want this to be their job, not ours. I always tell people, I'm not the one being interviewed. I'm not the one being hired. This is really their job. So it has to be important to them. And then fading that job support to give them that empowerment and that autonomy at work. And I will tell you that most of my participants, once they get their job, they do not want me there anymore once they know what they're doing. And usually I get a dirty look when I come to visit. So they don't always like that I come. They want to be left alone. So here are just some of our numbers. So on average, the national average for people with IDD, they're working 14 to 15 hours. The average Best Buddies participant is working 20.16 hours. The average wage nationally for someone with IDD is $9.45 to $9.75 an hour. Our average wage is $14.19 as of 2 weeks ago. That's when this number was last updated. We have over 1,800 placements and over 1,000 in development. And this is one of my participants. I love Heather. So one of the first things that I always ask my participants is, what's your dream job? Because I know, like I said, I've been working with people with IDD for over 12 years. I know that most of the time people are not asked that question. And if they are asked that question, it's not until they're in their teens, 20s. I've asked people even in their 40s and 50s that have never been asked that question before. Now, as a mom, I know I started talking to my daughter about jobs as soon as she could talk. As soon as she was playing dress up, what do you want to be when you grow up? So it's really disheartening to see people with disabilities not being given that same opportunity. So that's what I always start with is, what's your dream job? And Heather told me her dream job was to roll silverware. And I told her, well, that's not really a job. And I think that you can do more. So let me learn a little bit more about you. And it turns out she has a certificate in child development, but she's never had a paid position in childcare. So she has never been given the opportunity. So after we worked together for a little while, she ended up getting a job at the YMCA in Waxahachie, and she works in Child Watch, and she loves it. She has grown so much and gained so much confidence. And again, just that autonomy. She takes her job so seriously, and she knows that it's such a big responsibility. So to see her grow in that way is really, really phenomenal. So what are some things that you can do? So what are some action items that you can do right now to help your child get ready for work? Number one, encourage them to be independent in all their ADLs, their activities of daily living, which would be bathing, cleaning their house, getting dressed, transportation. Maybe they want to learn to drive. Work on all of those things now, so that that's going to help them. Not only are those skills going to help them, but the independence and the learning process that they're going to go through in order to learn those things, that's going to carry over into their job, their employment future. Practice interview skills, build a resume, and talk about jobs. This is a huge one. Again, people with disabilities are not often asked what they want to be when they grow up, so start talking about jobs. Talk about jobs anywhere you go. I've taken participants to coffee shops, to retail stores. We've gone all kinds of places, and we just sit and we look at all the jobs around us that exist. You go out to eat, talk about the waiter, talk about the chef, the hostess, busboy, the person cleaning, the manager, the person who built the restaurant, the person who designed the layout, who designed the menus, who printed the menus. There are so many jobs available. We're surrounded by them all the time. And sometimes we take that for granted. So start talking about those jobs that exist, because if you don't acknowledge that they exist, they won't ever become an option for your child. I always use the example, I don't know who brought this up to me years and years ago, but who designs, it's probably one of my sisters, because one of them is really weird and would think this. Who designs shower curtains? Like, I've never met anyone who designs shower curtains. I don't know anything about it, but someone does. So start talking about jobs like that. We really are surrounded with jobs at all times. So it really is important for us to talk about that and explore those as options. Next is explore. Find volunteer opportunities or opportunities to job shadow. Research. You have the world's information at your fingertips. You can look up who designs shower curtains, where do they work, how much do they make, what skills do you need, what kind of schooling do you need to design shower curtains. Research everything, and you can start to identify those interests and skills. And when you're doing this exploration process, you will start to identify things that they like, but you'll also identify things that they don't like, which is also equally important. You may discover they don't like working by themselves. They don't like working outside. They don't like working in a slow-paced environment. So start to note those things, as well as the things that they do like. Start to note things that they don't like as well. That's really important. And then you can connect with your local VR agency, which again, TWC is the first one I would recommend. You also have HCS, which I'll talk about in just a minute. There are some other agencies out there. So find an agency. You can just look up VR agency in your area. And all the different agencies are going to require different documentation. I wanted to put that in here so that you could know what documentation you need, but they're all different. But you'll definitely need copies of an ID, a social security card, medical records that have a proof of a diagnosis. Some agencies like TWC will require a psych eval. So start contacting them, figure out what you need, because what I have found is the process that takes the longest is getting all of the paperwork turned in, all of the necessary documentation. So if you start on that early, you're going to be one step ahead. And then here are some questions I get asked all the time. What are the requirements to be in Best Buddies? You have to be at least 18. You have to have a desire, again, to work competitively in the community. You have to be able to be independent in the workplace. Again, we're not set up to do long-term one-on-one support, so they have to be independent. They have to be independent in all of their activities of daily living, taking their own medicine, toileting, bathing, all of those things. They have to have reliable transportation. And I think that's all of our basic requirements. No behavioral problems, no major behavioral problems, I will say that. How long does it take to find a job? This is the most common question I get. How long does it take? And I'm going to tell you, I don't have an answer for you. The answer is it depends. It depends on a lot of different things. It depends on the VR agency that you go through. It depends on which employee you're working with. If you're going through the workforce, which counselor you have. It depends on their skills and abilities and work experience, what field they're going into, what area you're in. I've had people get a job in a month, and I've had people who have been looking for 6 or 8 months. It really depends on a lot of different factors. So I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you than that. What jobs are available? Again, this one depends. I get asked that a lot because where I live, most people are moving to Waxahachie and they want to know what jobs are there. So this again depends on your area, what field they're looking to go into, but do know that jobs do exist. There are jobs available. Some may be harder to find, but they are there. Do I have to go through TWC? Again, not all. We are a supported employment provider. Not all providers require TWC. We have worked with other agencies. So if you are adamant against TWC, reach out to me personally and we will find another solution. But they do have a lot of programs. If you can stick it out, it's really tough in the beginning, but if you can stick it out, it will pay off. And what is HCS? This is something I bring up in every single parent conversation I have. HCS is home and community-based services. This is a Medicaid waiver program. And if you are eligible for Medicaid, and even if you don't know if you're eligible, please contact HCS because you need to get on this waiting list, because the waiting list for Texas is at least 15 years. But once you get approved and get your waiver slot, you have access to therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, psychotherapy. You have access to job coaching and supported employment support. You have access to residential services like different living facilities, living support if they want to live independently, but just have someone drop in and check on them every once in a while. There are a lot of really good resources there. However, it's Texas, so our wait list is incredibly long. So if you're not on that list, please do that immediately, because even if I've been hounding my sister has a son with autism. I've been hounding her since he was 2 years old, 3 years old, and he first got the diagnosis. But she always said, well, he doesn't need these things. We have good jobs and we have all of these therapies covered. And, he's not looking for a job. He's not looking to go live on his own. We're not thinking about any of those things. But now he's 8 and she just got him on the list. So if he's lucky, he will get his slot when he's in his early to mid 20s, if he's lucky. So by that time, she will be looking for some of those supports. So I will get off that soapbox, but if you are not on the HCS waiver list, please, please, please go get that now. How will my SSI or SSDI be affected? Sorry, there's a typo there, be affected, question mark. So that differs, and I can't legally give you advice on your benefits. However, there are programs in place, such as the Ticket to Work program, that can help protect your benefits. If you are looking to get off of benefits and be completely independent and support yourself independently, you don't necessarily need your benefits. The Ticket to Work program is there and can kind of have a safety net so that your benefits don't go away while you're working. So that is an option. And I will say personally, I've always seen it work out in your favor, in the favor of working. You will always make more money working than you will relying on the SSI or SSDI. I will also say that you gain so much from working, and I don't know that you can put a price tag on that. I know people really rely on benefits, so I'm trying not to disparage that, but I will say people learn so much when they're working independently. So if you can get away with having your benefits affected, it may be worth it for some people. How involved should parents be in the employment process? So this is kind of a hot topic amongst providers. We talk a lot about parent involvement. So I'm just going to speak personally for me. I really like parents to be involved in the beginning because it helps us get to know our participants. It helps to have a third party there. So We can fill in the gaps of work history, some skills that maybe they're not thinking of that they have, but you see skills in them. It's really helpful in the beginning. However, I will say that parents do need to back off a little bit once their child goes to work, because we want to give them that room to learn and grow and be a little bit uncomfortable, because that's where their independence is really going to kick in, and that's where they're going to be successful. So again, I'm a parent. I know it's really hard to push our children out of the nest a little bit, but think about it when they go to school. It's hard when they first go to kindergarten. You're really worried about them. Will people make fun of them? What if they embarrass themselves? What will happen? But we know that they need to have that independence in order to grow, and they need to be given room to fail. Failure is a normal part of life. I've had people fail at jobs. I've had people mess up really, really, really bad. But as well as I do, that is where we learn the most, and that's where we grow. So we need to give them that opportunity and that space to fail. So it's hard, but it is important. And there isn't a Best Buddies program in my area. What should I do? What you should do is look up, you can Google supported employment provider in your area, and you should be able to find lots of things on Google. However, on this next page, I do have some resources for you. And that second one there is find a supported employment provider near you. So you can put in your area and you can see all of the different ones in your area. You also have, if you are interested in starting a case with the workforce, that first link there, it'll take you right. You can just fill out your basic information. They'll give you a call to get the rest, and they'll tell you what's next after that. But they did this online form, which is really helpful. So now you don't have to call and wait on hold. You can just fill out the form online. Again, the Ticket to Work program, if you're looking to get off disability benefits, that program can help you get to work, but still have that safety net there. The Job Accommodation Network is a website where you can type in any disability, any challenge, any struggle that you can think of, and they will give you options for accommodations. Inclusively is a job board that Best Buddies actually partners with, and people post jobs there and basically say, I'm willing to hire someone with a disability. So if you have a disability, you can check out that job board. The list of disability resources, that's just a really complete list that someone else created. That is awesome. Navigate Life Texas is a great resource when you're trying to figure out healthcare, education, employment. It will help you navigate life using Texas resources. Find your local LIDA. This is what you're going to need if you need to get on the HTS list. So LIDA is Local Intellectual Developmental Disability Authority. So if you look up your local LIDA, you can call them and say, I need to get on the HTS waiver list. And then there is another link that explains more about what the HTS waiver program does and some of the resources that you have. And then here is our contact information. Again, I'm sure Joaquin is going to send this information, this PowerPoint, out to everyone so that you have all this information. I know it was a lot, but I do want to open it up to questions. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here. I know that was a lot of information, but I hope that it was helpful, and I would love to answer any questions that you guys have.
So I saw that you have a Dallas and Houston office, but do you guys now have an Austin office too, or?
So we do. We just launched programs in Austin. We do not yet have a jobs program. I know there are talks of that, but that is not something that we have currently, and I don't have an ETA on when the jobs program might be open there. But I know that they're launching friendship programs, ambassadors, things like that in Austin.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned for like the jobs program, we try to get them to work 14 to 16 hours a week, right? Are there instances where the participants work more than that?
I have participants who work full-time, and I have participants who work under that with a goal to increase it. So I have some that are working 9 to 12 hours right now, but their goal is to increase it and get to that 15, 16 hour mark. And then, yeah, I have some who are working 40 hours a week. So it is a very wide range. I have people who are looking for their first job and people who have degrees in engineering and looking for a steady career. So all kinds of jobs.
Gotcha. And not a question, but just to reiterate something that you said, for the people that are on here, I will be sending out an email tomorrow with a link to this recording, as well as attaching the PowerPoint so you guys can see the information on your own time and check out the links that she provided. Any other questions?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, my question is for the Texas Workforce Commission, the person that you gave us, the Marquita, so can we just contact that person to kind of get the ball rolling, since I've never had much success with Texas Workforce Commission?
Yes. Are you in the DFW area?
Yes.
Okay, good. So then, yeah, she should be able to help you, and you can talk to her about any concerns or your experiences, and she should be able to help you. If anyone else is not in the DFW area, still contact her, and I'm sure she will get you to the right person.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Someone put in the chat, who do we call if we have any questions after today? So at the end of that PowerPoint, you have contact information for me and also my coworkers, Lindsay and Casey. You can contact any of us and we will get you to the right person. So if you do contact Casey or Lindsay, just let them know that you were part of this presentation, or just contact me directly and I can help you. I don't know have all the answers, but I can find someone who does. I can point you in the right direction.
Great. Cool. That'll work.
Any other questions?
No? All right. Well, I'm gonna stop the recording then now. And